We're going to talk about several encounters this morning that people that shouldn't have had encounters, that had encounters with God, that changed not just their lives, but their nation's lives, and changed our lives through what had happened. So I want to start off with a scripture that we've been hanging around for the last couple of weeks. We've been talking about possessing inheritance. Inheritance is something that your parents leave you, so when they die, you get the resources that they want in their life. Inheritance is not something you work for, and inheritance is something that you are given. You receive inheritance, you do not take inheritance. And we're going to start off with Hebrews 12. So we're looking at this scripture, and the writer of Hebrews starts out by saying, see to it that no one falls short of the grace of God. And in religious circles, the way that you fall short of the grace of God is by sinning. When you dirty, you look at the wrong thing, you do the wrong thing, you lie, you disobey, that is falling short of the grace of God. It is not the context of the whole Bible. We're going to look at some of those cases this morning, and it is certainly not the case of Hebrews in this verse. To fall short of the grace of God, to miss the grace of God, is to not recognize what He has freely made available, and to not possess what He has already given you. If I give you $10,000, $1 million into your bank account, that is a free gift. Yes, please. That is the right answer. If I put that in your bank account, you have $1 million. And then when you go to the restaurant and they say, would you like to pay? You say, my God has promised me an inheritance. So one day in the future, maybe if I'm good enough, I'll be able to pay for dinner. So let's do what the Christians are. I'm going to bless you, brother. Let me share the gospel. No. What you need to do is go to the bank with your $1 million in it that you've already been given freely, not through your hard work, but by His grace. And you receive what has already been accredited to your account. And then you go and pay for dinner, and you give the waiter a tip. And you display God's glory by a tip that He's never seen before. Not a little Christian prayer, a blessing beyond what they can imagine. So they go, how can you bless me with this? I'm not worthy. Yeah, you're right, you're not worthy. Do you know what else you're not worthy of? You're not worthy of Jesus. But He loved you anyway. That's how you preach the gospel. Poor little Christians not able to pay their way, and they, rather than not paying their way, they offer a little prayer as a condolence. No, the blessing is meant to every, and I've been poor, believe me, I've been poor. It's not a condemnation of being poor. It's a condemnation on the idea that it's good and holy to be poor. God didn't empty the bank account of heaven so that you could remain poor. He said, blessed are the poor. Oh, you see, you must remain poor. No, He said, blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom. So God has a solution to poverty already available and given to you freely. It is our responsibility. We get to respond by accessing the funds that He's put in our account. And so like the older brother, some people are trying to work for their inheritance, and the father, the compassionate, loving father says, everything I have is already yours. But he missed the grace of God because he was working too hard. Not because he was sinning, he was doing the right thing. He missed the grace of God because he was working for it. And who is the book of Hebrews written to? It's written to the older brother, the Jews. And they were missing the grace of God. They were insulting the Spirit of grace. Not by their sin, but by their hard work for righteousness. And so the whole of Hebrews leads you through an understanding that we no longer approach God based on the law. We approach based on faith, which is believing that He's good. And anything that approaches based on anything else other than faith is insulting grace. It's missing grace. It's falling short of grace. I encourage you, go and read Hebrews again with those lenses on, and you'll see it on every single page. It takes years of soaking in grace and looking at God's compassionate nature to come out of ideas that falling short of the grace of God is to sin. If grace is defined as unmerited favor, then what has your sin or not sin got anything to do with it? It's unmerited regardless. How can you fall short of something that's unmerited by your behavior? It's already unmerited. You fall short because you miss it. You choose to opt to a different plan. You choose not to go to the ATM and pull on the $1 million. That's how you miss it. And the temptation is by the older brother trying to work for it. That's the missing the grace of God. If you don't believe me, let's just read the other 2 verses to give you the context. Never mind the other 10 chapters. See to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many. See to it that no one is sexually immoral. We dealt with that last week. We talked about fornication being a spiritual fornication that you try and produce by slavery methods, Hagar, and not by Sarah, by grace. That's the spirit, that's the immorality, the fornication that Esau operated in. We looked at Jacob and Esau last week. It said, sexually immoral or godless like Esau. This is the sexual immorality. You ready? Who for a single meal sold his birthright, his inheritance rights as the oldest son. What's missing the grace of God? Not accessing your birthright. Because what follows the birthright? The blessing. Afterwards, as you know, when he wanted to inherit the blessing, he was rejected. Was he rejected because he was a bad boy? No, he was rejected because he sold his birthright. How do you miss the grace of God? You don't recognize what he's given you by inheritance, not because of your sin. If anyone was a bad boy, by most Christians' rendition of the Bible, Jacob was the bad boy. But he recognized the birthright because he knew what followed the birthright was the blessing. Even though Esau sought the blessing with tears, God, bless me, bless me. Oh, walking upstairs on their knees whilst they're bleeding, whipping themselves, repenting, asking for forgiveness, doing good works, even though he tried really, 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 really hard. He could not change what had been done, because the blessing does not follow your good works or your intention or your zeal or your passion. The blessing follows only the birthright. So stop playing the religious game of trying to get the blessing and start playing the spiritual game of understanding your birthright and accessing what you've already freely been given. And when you play that game, you go from checkers to chess. You're going from running the race to driving the race. You go to a whole other level of ability that some people may say is impossible. And it is impossible for those who miss the grace of God. When you operate in grace like the younger brother who did not deserve it. He was dirty, prostitute-y, stinky. He did not deserve it. And every single one of us in this room, if we looked at him coming back to the Father, we would say, give him prison time. He insulted the Father. He stole his inheritance. He took it early. Dirty. He squandered it. Let's put a cap on his bank account to teach him how to value. And what does the Father do? The compassion. This is the picture of our Heavenly Father. Our Heavenly Father gives him the coat, gives him the ring, gives him the sandals. And he offends the older brother. Let me remind you, do not miss the grace of God. Do not miss the grace of God. Question, how do we miss the grace of God? I want to say that we miss the grace of God by religious and cultural conditioning. Everything of this world teaches us to miss the grace of God. Everything out of man's intention and man's heart, which, by the way, is not purely evil. Man's heart separated from God is from the knowledge of the tree of good and evil. So don't kid yourself that everything man does is evil. No, everything that man does separated from God is good and evil. And so we are taught from birth how to navigate this world, the pattern of this world, by making judgments of good and evil. And we're taught, don't touch the stove, it's hot. If you touch it, you're going to burn. That is a good thing, right? And if you do touch a stove because you're disobedient, you've done an quote-unquote evil thing, and you've got a consequence from that. Everything in nature teaches us to live like that, by that pattern. And so it's very hard to preach what I'm about to preach to you this morning, and I really hope I may go off the reservation this morning. I may go into weird areas. I'm going to try and be a good boy. But I feel like there's something prophetic that's going to happen this morning. It's going to shake some of us out of religious paradigms. And I say that not because I know it all. I'm saying that because God's breaking me out of my religious paradigms. And so I'm speaking to you from revelation this morning, not from some clever, beautiful, crafted preach that I think is going to bless you from my intelligence. I want to bless you this morning from my stupidity. Because this is what God's speaking to me. And I'm going, God, I don't understand what you're saying. But I know he's saying something. I just can't quite figure it out. So I'm hoping that one of you can tell me what he's talking about. So I want to invite my brother up this morning. He's going to tell you a story about cultural conditioning.
I mentioned this story on Friday. We had a family get-together, and Sean just asked me to share it this morning. But before I tell you the story, it's important to know the cultural context of what we were raised up in as kids. In South Africa, my parents were a pastor and pastor's wife, and it's a very conservative culture, very old school. You could still smack kids. The principal could still smack you. I nearly got a smack by my principal. I actually, outside the principal's door, I said, Jesus, if you get me out of this one, I'll serve you for the rest of my life. And my principal was 6 foot something, had a huge wingspan of an arm, and he had a stick that he'd hit you with. And he sat down and he said, okay, you've done this. I deserved it. And he said to me, let's pray about it. And then after the prayer, he said, you know what? I just feel like you've learned your lesson. I walked out. I forgot that I made that commitment to God. And then he reminded me, I was like, oh yeah, I got to serve you for the rest of my life. But in that context, as a pastor and a pastor's wife, there was an expectation, rightly or wrongly, that people would look at your kids. And so my mom would have a blanket at the front of church. She'd have a stick next to her little paddy stick, and it was a spoon with a happy face on one end and a sad face on the other end. And so she would pick up the spoon, and depending on your behavior, if you saw the sad face, you knew what was coming. All right? And so we would have our little dinky cars, our little toy cars, and she would let us play, but we had to be absolutely quiet. Because in that context, kids were to be quiet. And I think there's some good to that. A lot has changed since, right? But in that context, we were disciplined and we were trained. My mom got a lot of compliments because she was such a great disciplinarian. She was very, very good at making sure that we said our please and thank yous. And so one particular event that Sean wants me to share is my mom would do these different jobs. So she had to make some money, and so often she would find ways to bring her kids along and make money. So one of the ventures that she did, she sold a vacuum cleaner called the Rainbow System. Has anyone heard of Rainbow? Ask her, she can sell you a unit later. But it's this cleaning system, very, very high-end and expensive. And so she would go into people's houses and demo them and just demonstrate what it could do. And on this one particular demonstration, she took us along. And we went to this beautiful house. It was on the farm, so they were a very wealthy family. And as we walk through the door, we're helping my mom take some of the stuff in. And I look to the side on the coffee table right there is this big bowl of Celebration chocolates. Now, we weren't rich. We didn't have chocolates in our house just sitting on a table for anyone to help themselves. And my eyes caught them. And this demonstration for us about an hour and a half. And I sat there on the sofa in the lounge, and my mom's showing and look, and she's vacuuming, and all the skin is coming into the tub, and they're, oh yeah, yeah. And they either bring their phone, their friend, and their friend comes from next door, and so she's just making all these sales. But I'm just staring at this bowl of chocolate, absolutely quiet, because my cultural conditioning, my mom's trained us, we're there to just be quiet and don't move, don't distract, because this is work time. And I just keep staring at the bowl of chocolates. And the lady says to me, oh, hello, my little boy, would you like a chocolate? And I don't know why, I just go, no, thank you. And I just keep staring at the chocolate bowl. Half an hour later, she catches my eyes again, and I'm just staring again at the chocolate. She goes, hey, no, honestly, you can have it. And she picks up the bowl, and she comes to me, and she puts it in my face. Now I can smell it. And I'm starting to salivate. I'm starting to drool. And I go, no. And in my mind, I'm going, I shouldn't take it. I really want it, but I shouldn't. And so she, okay, all right. And she knows I want it. I know I want it. But for some reason, I'm saying no. And then finally, just near the end, just before we're leaving the house and all the deals are made, she turns to me again, because I'm still just staring at the chocolate. And this time, my mom stopped talking, and they're saying goodbyes. And my mom now sees what I'm doing. And she goes, would you like a chocolate? And I go, no. And my mom turns, no, you can have one. And I go, yes, please. And I take one. But it's interesting, because not at any point did my mom recognize or say, don't take chocolate. But for some reason, I had not accessed what was being freely given to me, because I had made up the idea that that's not the right thing to do. So I just wanted to share that funny story with you.
Well done, Shay. And now you have no problem eating chocolate. Don't misunderestimate the power of religious and cultural conditioning. I have seen, traveling with Rob in other countries, where people will not receive prayer. They will purposely not, and they so want to, like the little boy looking at the chocolate, they will not receive prayer, because they're worried if they fall down, because other people fall down, that they've got a demon. And when they've seen people with demonic possession or oppression in their churches, that person gets thrown out. And so they will not access what's happening, the fun, joyous celebration time that's the big preacher from another country, from Hong Kong, has come in and he's laying his hands on people. They'll sit there really wanting to be blessed, but fearful because their culture has stopped them entering. I've seen other people there with the power of God to heal, and they'll sit there with their arms closed, folded. It's not God's will to heal, and yet the power of God's there. People are getting healed. Going, I'm healed. They're getting the mic, I'm healed. I had this thing and now I'm better. They won't access cultural conditioning. So I want to give you a little example of how cultural conditioning affects us. Who would like a chance to win 500 Hong Kong dollars? Seamus put his hand up first. No, but you're illegal. Would you like a chance to win $500? Come, James. Okay. So you stand there, James. So this is a very common con job that you see in different capital cities in the world with lots of tourists. And what they will do is they'll put a little metal ball under 3 cups, one of the 3 cups, move it around really, really quickly, and then get people to guess. And they've got tricks that they do to make sure that they guess the wrong thing, and they get 20 pounds for free. And it's a big spectacle, and people gather around, and they can make hundreds and hundreds of pounds or euro in a very short amount of time, and then the police come and they run away and they wait for them to go and do it again. So I'm going to scam you.
All right.
You think you're getting this $500.
But I don't have to pay
Yeah, you pay me. No.
You should put down the 500 and just go like winner takes all.
So what happens in this world, the pattern of this world, is we learn there are certain principles by which to operate. We learn on how to behave. We learn about the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and we try and maximize our profits on the good and minimize our losses on the evil. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. If I walked into the building naked this morning, I would be arrested. Let me explain that thought. Some people think, why is he saying that? I don't need clothes to survive, but culturally, it is good that we wear clothes in most parts in the world. But you know, in Africa, Adele, you will know this, there are some places that the women do not wear tops. It is not a bad thing to wear like a little piece of string. And things are bouncing all around. And so missionaries from Western countries go to these remote parts of Africa going, oh no, oh no, oh no. And everybody in that village is going, what's the problem? They haven't been culturally conditioned that to be mostly naked is bad. So we all choose to wear clothes, and if we don't, we will get arrested. But you know, God doesn't care whether you wear clothes or not. When He created Adam and Eve, there was no Omani. But once they fell into the pattern of this world, He then gave them clothes. He actually gave them clothes to cover over. It's a picture of grace. So the pattern of this world will offer you a prize. It'll offer you something good and avoiding the bad. And not all of that should be just dismissed and let's all run around naked. That is craziness. I'm not suggesting that. But what I am suggesting is that it is possible to miss the grace of God when you put too much value on the pattern of this world. $500 is yours. If you can guess whatever cup you pick up, you're going to pick up $500. Okay, so I'm going to put...
Whichever cup I pick up, I will pick it up. Or what?
For the camera's sake and for James's sake, I've put $500 in this cup. No trick.
Never saw what's
You don't know what's going on, James. If you know this trick, you don't know what's going on, James. So, the game of this world, the pattern of this world, offers a prize for you to play it. And it's a legitimate prize. I have not conned James. I really have offered him a prize. Now, there are people who will con you with the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's called religion. But it is called religion. Empty, deceitful schemes. When Paul's writing about empty, deceitful schemes, he's not talking about the London con man. He's talking about people in the church who are dressed up in sheep clothing, but they're actually wolves. Religion will con you. Empty, deceitful schemes. I've offered you $500.
Okay.
Follow this cup. This is where the prize is. If you play the game well, you will win $500. Are you ready?
Am I allowed to do anything? I won't touch the cups, right? I won't turn around, but am I allowed to do anything else?
Thank you, Rainbow.
Am I allowed to, like...
I'm not giving you a tip.
Am I allowed to move my body in any way?
Just play the game the best that you can, as an innocent tourist.
The wrong person.
Okay, so I'm going to move this around. You watching? That's where the 500 is.
All right.
Okay, you watching?
Yeah. You forget this.
Are you watching?
Yeah. What?
Okay. Now, thank you, Rainbow. If you pick up the cup with the 500, you get it. Pattern of this world.
James, I'll give you 500 and you let me pick up.
No, you sit down. Sit down.
I will give you 500 and you let me pick up.
No, get back here. We are not talking about people who know my scheme. We are not talking about CCI people. We are talking about your average believer who loves God and wants to bless God and be blessed by God. But they don't understand that there are con jobs out there. And they read the Bible like sin misses the grace of God. So just your average believer, for the purpose of people.
So I can't rewind my photographic memory then.
Pick a cup.
I think it was that one.
This. No, just play the game. Play the game for the sake of the illustration.
All right.
Okay. Hey! Show everyone what you won. Now, James is a winner, is he not? He went to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and he produced. He worked hard, and he won his prize. That is your $500. You can keep that $500. But you know that there's a game out there where he's just missed the grace of God. Now, he knows the real game. He knows what the real game is. If I allowed you to play the game where the CCI Christian understands what the grace of God is, what cup would you have chosen? Yeah.
I was going to go for that one.
Yeah, because you're a good Christian. If you haven't seen that on Facebook or YouTube, it's a common trick. You do it with your kid. They choose the $5 or the $10, and then you show them what they could have won. Thank you, James. You can take that $500. Some people are happy with $500. And I'm not saying $500 is bad. Get $500. James just did. But if you miss the grace of God and you just go man's way and you earn a little bit by your own hard work and effort, and I'm not saying there's no hard work and effort for the Christian, but in terms of receiving from the Father, you didn't even give me a small goat. Then when you see someone access by faith and they start to inherit the blessing and possess the promise, you're going to get very angry because you worked hard for your 500. I'm angry about inflation. I don't like inflation happening. Dilutes my money. You know, in Hong Kong, we had money being given out. 5,000 here, 10,000 there. Everybody got access to it, right? I wasn't happy with that. That millions and billions that was given out diluted the money that I do have. So when you operate by just the blessing, or I shouldn't say the blessing, I should say by the pattern of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and you get your good result from that tree, when someone comes along and has a supernatural result, you're going to be angry. So the writer of Hebrews says, don't miss the grace of God. Don't be bitter. Get the blessing. Receive the blessing. Because you can cry all you want. If you access by the wrong means, you're godless, like Esau. And no matter how much you cry, it's never going to change. So save your tears and just access by your birthright. And your birthright will attract the blessing. Don't be conned into accepting the best that you can offer. Like James was. He was conned. Make sure... So he is angry now because he can see that there was 20K on the table that he could have had. I should have picked someone I knew didn't know the task. The 500 he earned by his own ability to track the cup. The 20,000 he missed by his own ability to track the cup. Religion will teach you to track the cup and get your just deserves. Grace will teach you to track your Father and access by faith, believing that He's good, and you'll get 20K. Thank you, Patrick. Praying for Winnie. Winnie is someone who accesses by faith. She's going through difficult things. In those difficult things, she gets setbacks and delays. And when she sends messages, you just read faith. And she's really struggling. She has some difficult emergencies. But, even in the emergency, she has favor. And she recognizes the favor. She says, even though I'm going through a storm, I'm going to come through the storm. That is a hero of faith. Amen. She's not getting distracted by the crafty, cunning schemes. She's keeping her eyes on the prize. I just pray that through my life, and no one is perfect, certainly not me. I just pray that I can just develop enough momentum of accessing by faith that no matter what takes me out at the end of my life, whether it's tomorrow in a car accident, whether it's in Timbuktu preaching the gospel, or whether it's old age in the hospital hospice, whatever it is that takes me, I just pray that I have that same faith that Winnie has. God's going to bring me through. Even if it's through the other side of eternity, I'm just going to keep on praising. I'm going to keep on believing. But your culture and your conditioning has been taught every time you receive a setback, it's because your ancestors have cursed you because you didn't burn enough paper money. You didn't sweep the grave well enough. You did a sin. You didn't obey. And so it conditions you to miss the grace of God. There is a strength available to access the promise despite your condition. And that's what faith is. I'm going to look at a story now that you will all know, and I want to encourage you that this character accessed by faith despite the position that he was in. You will all know it. Let's bring up Judges 6. We're going to look at Gideon. And Gideon, as we all know, is in the wine vat. It's where you crush grapes to make wine. And he's not crushing grapes. He is crushing wheat to try and make a little bit of bread. The enemy has overrun Israel. They are completely oppressed. They are hiding in the hills. They don't even live in their normal houses. They have to go and hide between the rocks like wild animals. And whenever the enemy decides that they're going to impress Israel, they, at their own choice and their own will, they just do it willy-nilly. It's not even a battle. And Israel has just shrunk, disappeared into almost a non-existence. And there's Gideon, trying to make a little living, trying to just survive, trying to just get through. And he's not even using the right equipment. Just shrunk back in a little hole. I feel like that sometimes. I know the Bible says, I know it says be content in all things. I know it says that. And I understand the maturity, the attitude of being grateful regardless. Grateful even if you can't speak and you're about to die. Oh God, I just thank you that you bless. There's a contentment in Christianity that we should live by. I get that. But there should also be a prophetic frustration to see the glory of God break out. David didn't come up to Goliath and say, my heavenly Father, I am content that we're being oppressed. And Goliath, I'm content with the curses that you're calling down on us. Saul, let's call the army off and give Philistines all the territory. Let's let go of our inheritance and let our enemy dispossess us from what God has given us. No, he ran into battle and said, you uncircumcised fellow. He said, you do not have a covenant with the living God. Now, the Christian who's taught to not ask for the chocolate, who's taught to follow the con job cup, will go, be content in all things. You're being oppressed. Just let it happen to you. Shh, 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 shh. And just let the enemy rape you. That's what some Christians genuinely believe. That is not what David believed. David believed that he had a covenant. And how dare the enemy come and call curses on the army of God. And so he picked up whatever equipment he had, which wasn't much, a few sticks and stones, and he ran at the enemy. But you know what he did have? He had a covenant. That's what he ran with. He was content with the covenant, but he was not content with the oppression. You've got to get out of your mind that you should be content in all things and just let the enemy rape my life. No, 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 no. You get content with your covenant, not with your condition, not with your surroundings, not with the enemy oppressing you. That is not a good belief system. Oh, it's God's will that he gave me cancer. Well, then Jesus broke God's will every time he healed someone. When Jesus commanded the storm to stop, he was countering God's will. because God sends the storms in our lives. No. That story says the enemy stirred up the storm, not God. Do not get content with the enemy stirring up trouble in your life. Get content with the covenant. So here Gideon is not content. He's not happy. He's throwing a little tantrum, actually. Tantrums are bad. God doesn't bless tantrums. Let's have a little look then. Well-to-do Christian, well-behaved. And I'm talking to myself. Seamus just shared with you how we were brought up. I was very well-behaved. Biting my tongue most of my life, not saying the wrong thing. Shh, don't say anything, don't stir the boat. Be content in all things. People abuse me, and other friends will go, Sean, why do you let that happen? No, don't say anything, it's okay. God's blessed me. But they're stealing everything. Sean, no, it's okay, God's blessed me. Man, I've got to learn more from Gideon. I've got to throw a few more tantrums. You've got to throw a few more tantrums. You've got to be unhappy with where you're at. Sometimes I was complaining to Bonnie last night. Godly complaining. I was saying, God. I said, God. I love our little house. We've been in our house since we got married. It was such a blessing. It was a miracle to be in that house. It's been such a place of blessing. I'm saying, but our little boy's growing up and there's no room. And I'm trying to prepare messages and I can hear pots clanging and Sammy screaming. And I'm frustrated. I come downstairs. I say, I can't prepare now. Throw a little tantrum. I say, I need a bigger house. I've missed the grace of God. And here's my brother, got a 3-story big garden, bigger garden than you've ever seen. And I'm getting bitter because I've missed the grace of God. And I celebrate my brother. He knows I'm not brother. But he didn't miss the grace of God. He took the sweet when he shouldn't have. Naughty. But he can have his kids screaming the other end of the house and be fine. Who's missed it? Him or me? I've missed it. So I threw a little tantrum. A godly, humble tantrum. Because I'm so religiously trained to be content. So I say, Bonnie, I love this house, but it's not big enough. And why haven't we seen more? And God's blessed us here and here. And it's a miracle that we're here. But why haven't we seen the greater miracles? And I start to tantrum. I didn't get on the floor and scream, but you know what I'm saying. My own judgment of myself would be, you're an ungrateful, bitter person. No, if I didn't express the dimensions that God is inviting me into by frustration, that would be the bitterness that takes root. When I see the grace of God and then I look at my condition and say, God, invite me to a higher dimension, that's coming out of bitterness. Don't take my word for it. Let's read Gideon, little tantrum boy. Gideon's in the wine press, hiding, trying to survive, not happy with his conditions around us. Then the Lord comes to him. Now, I still don't understand this, and we had the same encounter last week when the Lord comes and fights Jacob in the ford of Jabbok, in the river. I don't know if it's the Lord, the angel Lord. Is that the Spirit of God? Is that just an angel? I don't understand this. I'm so grateful I don't understand it. It means that there's something I can still find out. And so the angel of the Lord appears to Gideon, and he says, in the little wine vat, the Lord is with you, mighty warrior. I like the fact that the Lord is with me, but I don't understand the mighty warrior bit. Because he's not even in the big bakery where he's milling wheat with 16 machines. He's hiding in the little toilet in the back, trying to make a little loaf of bread to survive. Mighty warrior! And then I've heard this so many times, and I agree with this. God doesn't talk to you in your condition. He talks about to what he calls you to prophetically. That's not what it says. It says he didn't say you will be a mighty warrior. He says you are a mighty warrior now. Now watch the tantrum. I want you to see this, well-behaved, mature Christians. I want you to see the tantrum. Because some of you will not have the tantrum just because I said to have a tantrum. You think it's bad. Let's watch the tantrum. You can see it's Bible, not Sean. Pardon me, maybe he is polite. My Lord. But if the Lord is with us, Why has this all happened to us? I am not content in my condition. If he's really with us, why is my house too small? Why is my bank account always just making it through the month? Why are my clothes falling apart? Why are my relationships always in tatters? Why do I have this deep sense of longing and loneliness, but I can't find a match? Be discontent. Why has this all happened? Where are all his wonders? Whose wonders? The Lord's wonders. He's actually accusing God here. Most Christians, if they had the God button, lightning would come right down immediately. Where is God? Boom! Dead. And if anyone has the right to lightning Gideon at this point, it was God. How dare he accuse God? But God's allowing him the tantrum. Because there's something in the tantrum that looks at the scale of what God is able to do, that God calls mighty. Where are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about? We haven't experienced it, but I heard mommy saw a healing. I saw daddy pray for someone. I saw Rob Rufus talk about someone getting out of a wheelchair. In the same conversation about the house, I said to Bonnie, why aren't we seeing greater miracles? It's one thing for Rob Rufus to talk about it. Where are they in our day? It's one thing to have mercy. It's so good to have you back and visiting us. It's so wonderful, Davis. It's one thing for Mercy and Davis to receive a financial breakthrough with a miracle contract greater than what they could imagine in an impossible situation. But what about my business? What about my job? Where are all his wonders? I wonder where his wonders are. Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt? Did he not release us from slavery and bondage and oppression? Why are we back here? It wasn't God's fault that they're back in slavery and bad circumstances. It was their fault. They worshipped other gods. The prophets came and warned them, and they still went their own way. Tantrum now. But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of our enemies. Lightning from heaven. No, no. Let's look at God's response. The Lord turned to him and said, go in the strength that you have. The pattern of this world says lightning bolt. Kill him. How dare he accuse God? God's way to respond is go in the strength that you have. You're frustrated. You're unhappy. You think that there's more room. You think freedom is available. You think the ability to make bread in a bakery as opposed to in a little hole is a good thing. That you actually want that. Go in the strength that you have. Because you have seen what I am able to do. And you're willing to trust me to bring you to that place. Strength, might, warrior. He didn't say, go in the strength that I will give you on journey. Go in the strength that one day you may find when you become a mature enough Christian. When you finish your little tantrum, then you will come to a place of peace and I will build you up over many years and then you will fight. He said, go in the strength that you have. That strength was seeing what God was able to do despite his condition. The doctor gave me reports. The second opinion doctor gave me the same report. The bank manager called me and said, there's no hope. We're dissolving. The wife said, I'm going to leave you. I want you to sign the divorce papers. The kids say, I hate you. I never want to speak to you again. I'm not happy about this, God. I don't want this to happen this way. I feel oppressed. I feel the enemy's on me. I'm angry about this. Where are all your wonders? Go in the strength that you have, because you can see what I'm able to do. Some of you need to have a tantrum, a godly tantrum. You've been too conservative in your relationship with God. And like Jacob, who was so obsessed with wrestling with man for the blessing, when eventually God came along, he would not let him go. And it says that God could not overpower him the whole night. Eventually he's saying, let me go. It's about to be daybreak. I will not let you go until you bless me. I can't reconcile that the God who made the heavens and the earth, that made Jacob, could not overpower him. Jacob was having a tantrum. He's fighting. And then God says, I never called you Jacob. I'm calling you Israel. You're going to fight with me. That's who you have your conflict with. Don't worry about the world of man. That's the pattern of this world. I want you to wrestle with me. Let's leave that for the moment. And the story of Gideon, then the rubber hits the road and he goes, okay, now I'm the weakest. Now I don't know what to do. Give me a sign. He's got sheep skins and goat skins that are wet and the dew hits the outside. Then the next day it's in the middle. And then he's got dreams from the enemy who are giving him godly dreams that Gideon's going to win the battle. And eventually, through a whole process, Gideon gets to the place where he can actually win the battle. But the strength that he has was to see what God was able to do, despite his condition. It was Jacob receiving the blessing despite not being Esau, even though he had the birthright. You know, in my preparation for last week, I was reading blogs and stories and articles and listening to preachers about Rebecca. And one thing I didn't mention is that Rebecca means to be captivated or to tightly bind, which was exactly what happened. She tightly bound the sheepskin on Jacob's body. And that's what grace does. It tightly binds what we need to inherit, what we need to receive the blessing. Grace puts that on us so we can receive from heaven. But most people will look at that story. I read one lady. She looks through the whole story. She uses words like deceit that I've used, and theft, and sneaky and tricky for Rebecca to help Jacob get the blessing. And then she draws her moral at the end of the story and says, the moral is don't be deceitful, because deceitful is bad. And I thought, you stupid woman. You are such a good Christian. You're so lovely and your heart is good and all your fonts and the color on your website is so beautiful and great. But that is a stupid idea to come to. Because if Rebecca hadn't done what she had and tightly bound the grace of God on Jacob, he wouldn't receive the blessing that was prophesied that he should receive. And so we approach the grace of God like, let's just do the right thing, like that lady writing the blog, and go, don't be deceitful. Now, Rebecca wasn't being deceitful. She was actually being true to what God had called. But the accusation was, you're sneaky. You're deceitful. And we good Christians who sit in the front row, rainbow, and say the right thing, and don't take the sweets, and don't ask for too much. Oh, that's enough, that's enough. And we take the smallest piece of cake, because you're always conditioned. You take the small piece. And then when someone takes the big piece, like my brother learned to do, I would get angry. Don't take the big piece. You're supposed to, but I want the big piece. Well, you can't have it. Well, why not? Well, it's not polite. Yeah. I was joking with a friend of mine this week. We would joke because I do the same thing. You go to a dim sum restaurant with beautiful Chinese people, and they order a little bit of everything. And we big fat Westerners like to eat a lot of food. And so, but we'll be polite because culturally we are taught, be polite, don't order, don't take too much. If someone else is ordering, you just say, yes, whatever you want. If they give you chicken's feet, you pretend like it's nice. And on the way home, you go to McDonald's because you're like, I need something to eat. So I was telling him I had to break out of that pattern. Well, now when I go to the dim sum restaurant, even if it's just Bonnie and me, I will order 6 chao su bao, 6 barbecue pork buns. And not 6 little individuals. I will order 6 bowls. So there's actually 18 chao su bao. And everybody reacts exactly like you're reacting. How dare you? Because I hate just enough. I hate being polite. And so I joke about it now. I'll order way over. I'll take home doggy bags. I'll give it to people. I'll throw it away. But I never want to be polite and just take, oh, that's all right. That's all right. We're at Esther's house on Friday. I said, Esther, that cake is so nice. Can I have another piece? I think I deserve a round of applause. I asked somebody else for another piece. Is that right, Esther? You were impressed. Seamus is saying he's never seen me do that before. So, I want to tell you, I want to challenge you. Don't be polite. Throw a tantrum. Receive what God has already put in your bank account. Challenge God to bless you. Say, God, you really want to bless me? $500? You can only do 500, God? And I can immediately hear the voices going, oh, well, no, hold on. I can hear them. I can, not out there, in here. I can hear the voices that say, oh, no, that's not polite. That's not good. That's exactly why you need to do it. You need to ask for the bigger house. Oh, no, the love of money is the root of all evil. Well, don't love it, but make sure you access what God has given you. Now, I want to finish on a story from someone who did not have a birthright, who did not have the right to access the blessing of God. And I want you to see how Jesus responds to this person. Because if you don't follow through this whole story, this whole interaction, if you just stopped halfway through, it would confirm everything that the polite Christian believes, that you should not take, you should not receive, you should not access from heaven. But I want you to see through the end of this story, it'll confirm the goodness of God and what He's able to do, even if you don't deserve it. I want you to watch this. So, this story occurs in both Matthew 15 and Mark 7. And so in Mark 7, that's the account we're going to read, Jesus is in a territory that's called, I'm going to butcher the names now, as Syrian Phoenicia. This is north of Israel, and it is in a state or in a geography that this place was very famous for its trade and very famous for its city-states, where these independent cities that became very, very rich through merchant trading, that ships, and they made a lot of money. These guys were very, very successful. And so this is one of the few times, if only time, that Jesus is outside of Israel during his ministry. He spent a little time in Egypt as a kid on holiday, and that's a joke because Herod was trying to kill him. He wasn't on holiday, he was escaping for his life. Very good picture of what Israel did in Egypt. But this is one of the accounts, if the only account, that he spent time outside of Israel. And the reason he was outside of Israel is he wanted to escape the pestering of Pharisees and the crowds trying to pull on him. He needed some rest. And so it says here in Mark 7 that he went to the vicinity of Tyre. This is one of the main cities in this particular area. And he entered a house and did not want anyone to know it. Yet he could not keep his presence secret. I love that because this tells the person that has to get on the street and shout at everyone to get saved. This says, hey man, even if you try and keep it a secret, you can't. You can't keep Jesus a secret. When people look into your eyes, they're going to see something's different. Evangelism doesn't have to be difficult. Evangelism starts with you receiving and accessing your inheritance, and the overflow will attract people in. Can't keep it secret. In fact, as soon as she heard about him, a woman whose little daughter was possessed by an unclean or impure spirit came and fell at his feet. So Jesus is on holiday. Shh, don't tell anybody. And here a woman comes. Now, I want you to see this connection. There is a very famous woman in the Bible by the name of Jezebel. When you say that name, people go, ooh, a little bit scared. I love studying Jezebel. I think she's so interesting. And she was from exactly this region. And Jezebel is famous for bringing in idol worship, very specific type of idol worship, into Israel. And Elijah dealt with her, and other people threw her off towers, and very interesting story. I encourage you to go read it. But part of the religion of these people that Jezebel brought into Israel was child sacrifice. So here's a woman from Jezebel's home country that Israel had real trouble getting rid of. And now her child is sick. Whose fault is that? Jesus' fault? No. Is that Israel's fault? Israel tried to get rid of that. She's from the birthplace of killing your children. And now her child is sick. Now, can you imagine the thoughts of all the people around her? Sacrifice your child. Get rid of her. This is a problem. That's the religion. That's her cultural conditioning. In fact, could be a blessing in the pattern of this world, because a demon spirit is possessing. This is the God that we worship is actually possessing you. And yet she loves her daughter and doesn't want to sacrifice her. She wants to see her healed. So this dirty Greek or Gentile, this is not a Jewish person, this is somebody else, approaches Jesus, falls at his feet and says, heal my daughter. Jesus is so loving and so kind. Let's just read this. The woman was Greek or Gentile, meaning not Jewish. She was born in Syrian, Phoenicia. She begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. Then Jesus says to her, first, let the children eat all they want. It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the little dogs. Jesus is calling her a dog. Ruff, ruff. In English, we would use the B word. Very bad word, derogatory, horrible. This woman deserved, by earthly standards, her child to be possessed. And she's approaching Jesus, and Jesus says, you're getting what you deserve. It's not right for me to take from who I'm called to. In Matthew 15, it says, I've been called to the lost sheep of Israel. I haven't been called to you. That's not my mission. It's going to be my disciples' mission. My mission is to come to Israel. So she had no right. Jesus was not wrong in his mission. He didn't get confused in the moment because he was on holiday, forgot his Bible. He was right. She wasn't his mission. So she had no right to be there. She had no right to make that request. And she deserved her child to be demon-possessed. And Jesus says, I'm not going to give you what my mission is from my plate when you don't have any access to it. I'm going to take away from Israel to honor you. I love that about Jesus, that he's not going to dishonor his own family to serve other people. That's the problem with a lot of Christians, particularly pastors. They'll sacrifice their own family for the sake of others. It's not a good thing. That's devil worship. That's not worshiping God. You've got to look after your own family. Bless your own family. Men who at the end of their lives go, what would you change? They go, I wish I worked less and spent more time with my family. They don't go, I wish I earned more money. Not wrong to earn money. Not wrong to go to work. I say goodbye to my boy. Goodbye, going to work, go to 3 Thai. Oh, Baba, stay. No, I need to go. I need to feed you. But when I can, I make sure I'm back to see him to bed, and I play with him, and I spend time with him. Because it's good to look after your family. In fact, the Bible says you can't shepherd the church unless you're a good shepherd of your own family. And yet a lot of pastors, not most, but a lot of pastors will sacrifice their own family to serve the church. That disqualifies them by biblical standards. Anyway, I can see we're almost finished. Stay with me. Stay with me. Don't stop the story. Stay with me. I know I'm long-winded, but it's the beans that I had. So, Jesus quite rightly says, let the children eat what they want. It says not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Now that was designed as an offense. I want you to know what happened to Jezebel. Dogs ate up her body. So Jesus is a callback to the Elijah days, saying that's what you deserve, dog. I'm reading into that. Maybe Jesus was more loving. But that's the cultural conditioning. He's offering her culture. He's offering her history. We encountered you, woman, a couple hundred years ago. And our dogs ate you up. You were bad for us. This is Israel we're talking about. And you brought in your dirty, impure devil worship. You're a dog. And look what she says. Lord, she replied. Lord, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. She had no right. She knew she was a dog. She admitted it. She didn't take offense to it. She says, but just give me a little crumb. I'll take just a little crumb. I know I don't have rights. I know I shouldn't be accessing. But I love my daughter. And I want to see something of your goodness. And I know you can do it. So she didn't give up, even though she had the opportunity to get offended. Just like God didn't get offended at Gideon's tantrum. She didn't get offended at the perception. Jesus didn't throw a tantrum. But at the perception that Jesus was putting up this blockade, she didn't get offended. And she was going to access regardless. And we know what happens. Read the next slide. Then he told her, for such a reply. In Matthew 15, it says, woman, you have great faith. When you reply to God, despite your condition and despite how you feel about whether you can access or not, or your behavior, God calls that great faith. God calls that strength. He does not ridicule you and reject you. When you say, yes, I know my position. I know where I am. I know I'm dirty, but I'm going to receive anyway. He says that's great faith. You may go. The demon has, let me just add a word in here, has already left your daughter. Great faith. Now, the difference, thanks, John, the difference between that woman and us is that we have already been included in Christ. We now have a birthright. We are the children that don't sit under the table waiting for scraps. We are the children at the table eating the bread, leaving the scraps. Little crumbs fall over the table. Your unsaved friends should be going, oh, I really like hanging around Rainbow. I get all the little crumbs that she leaves. And then Rainbow invites them up to the table and says, come and join my Jesus. So as sons who have a birthright, we have the right to access our inheritance. And yet some of us have not even demonstrated an ounce of faith that that woman demonstrated because we're unwilling to ask God to bless us. We're unwilling to say, God, I don't know how to get through this. My conditions are all pressing in on me, and I'm just going to be content for it. And like the older brother, we go, oh, you didn't even give me a small goat. And God says, oh, everything I have is yours. Access it. Use it. Make a withdrawal. When you get to 0, I'll put another 1 million in. There's this YouTuber I like to watch. All the kids will love him. John, you'll know him, Mr. Beast. And go and watch some of his videos. He got famous because he got $10,000 US. That's almost 100,000 Hong Kong dollars from a sponsor. He went to a homeless person and gave it away. And that's been his whole business model. Is every time he receives money, he gives it away. He spends millions of US dollars per video. He's now, I don't know if he is already, but he's about to be the biggest YouTuber on the platform. He gives away private planes. He'll go into a shopping center and buy the whole shopping center's worth of groceries and give them to people. Because his whole mentality is, I'm just going to bless people. I know I'm blessed. I don't even know if he's saved. I think he is, but I'm not sure. But he just has such an understanding of the blessing of God. And people around him go, how can you do this? How can you do this? I don't know. Not about money for me. I just bless people. And yet we sit in our little homes with not enough, complaining about energy prices and fuel prices, complaining about our jobs. And we complain to everyone around us, but we won't go to God and complain to Him and say, God, I need a little tantrum time. God bless me. Bless me. Bless me. I want to pay Russ. I want to get to the end of the month with some money in my pocket. I don't want to be going to my neighbor and say, hey, please, can you give me a little bit of flour just so I can survive? Throw your tantrum. Go in the strength that you have. Ask for more. Get the other slice of cake. Ask for the goat, like the older brother wouldn't. Be impolite. Be rude. Reach for it. Stretch for it. When you feel offended because you don't get the answer that you want, like that Syrophoenician woman, say, Lord, give me a crumb then. I'll even take a crumb, because I know a crumb from you is greater than the best that I can produce. It's crummy theology to not ask for a crumb. Ask for the crumb. Then when you get your crumb, say, God, you got a slice of bread up there for me? That's faith, Todd. He said, a loaf. Then he said, a bakery. Because you can't eat all the bread in a bakery, but you can feed a whole village from a bakery. That's the power of the blessing, is it blesses you and then blesses all nations through you. Gideon didn't ask for something just for himself. He was asking about the whole of Israel. Say, we're all in this trouble. If you access more blessing, your family life will improve. People around you will be blessed. We get a survivor mentality for too long. We stop requesting and accessing what God has freely already given us, and the people around us suffer. So everyone's buying toilet paper, selfishly fighting for it. Because they, supermarket toilet paper. I want to challenge you. I want everyone to stand. And I want you to really assess this in your own mind and in your own heart. I want you to look at points of frustration and say, God, I'm frustrated about this. I don't like this. I need a partner. I need a business idea. I need a breakthrough. I need a contract. I need that relationship to be fixed. I don't know how to do it. Gideon didn't have the whole plan and the whole strategy. He didn't know he would break jars and make horn sounds and get 32,000 men to lose almost all of them. He didn't know all of that. He probably wouldn't have started the journey if he knew what was about to happen. But what he did know is that God was able. So I'm not asking you for God to, through your imagination, give you a solution to your problem. That's a bad place to start, because you don't have the imagination to dream up the solution. What you do have is a direct line to your Father to say, where are you, God? Where are your wonders? Show me your wonders. I don't like being in a wine press. I don't like being in a small hole. I'm not content. Even though my religious training tells me to be content, I'm not content. Give me a crumb. Give me more than a crumb. So agree with me in prayer, in your own language, at your own time. Just pray over me. Be as rude as you want to be as I pray. Say, Father, thank you for your blessing. Thank you for the inheritance that you've given me. But Lord, I do not want my inheritance to be stuck in heaven where I have no access, where I put it in my trophy room and look at it on the shelf. Lord, I want to unbox it. I want to unwrap it. I want to access it. Lord, I want to see your blessing in my finances. I want to see your blessing on my bank account. I want to see your blessing in my home, on my car, on the best public transport I have access to. Father, I want you to bless me with the best phone. I want you to bless me with the best friends. Lord, I pray for a blessing to overflow on my family, that every one of my family would understand and note the Lord has blessed me. Father, I thank you for every opportunity that I have to access. And I, Lord, say, not from a vow and not through a promise, but through a pledge, I'm going to pledge that I'm going to ask for the bigger slice of cake. I'm going to reach for what you have already given me. I'm going to receive that which you have given me. Thank you, Father. I receive. I receive. I receive. I don't say no. I don't hold back. I receive. I receive. I don't know how, but I don't need to know how in order to receive. I just say yes. I just say yes. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, yes. You got to say yes, even when your brain tells you the pattern of this world. Even when your brain says you don't know how, and you didn't get all your ducks in a row, and you don't know how to get to XYZ. You still got to say yes. I receive. I don't know how. Well, how are you going to do that? I don't know. I just know. I know that my God is full of wonders, full of signs, full of miracles. I'm just going to say yes to that. Yeah, but you don't have the education. I don't know about education. I'm not educated enough to know about it. I'm just going to say yes. I'm going to receive. I want to remind you that when Jacob said, what happens if my father brings a curse on me because I'm doing something I don't feel qualified to do? Grace said, let the curse fall on me. Only go in and receive the blessing. When you reach, and all of us are going to fail at some point, but if you fail, it will not be a curse. It will be a blessing. You cannot fail. God said, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. What that means is, if you receive a curse, God's going to curse that curse. That curse is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller and eventually die. The little bit of blessing that you receive is going to be blessed and grow and grow and grow. If I said to you, take a gamble, and you either win big or you win very big, what are you going to do? You're going to gamble. If you gamble in this world, you will most likely lose. Over time, you will lose. It's designed that way. But when you #gamble spiritually, when you reach into your inheritance and possess that which God has already given you, you're either going to win or you're going to win big. And some of us have been trained out of that to think like man does and accept natural consequences. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds. I know it's going to be awkward and quiet. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Be awkward and quiet. But I want you, between you and your Heavenly Father, to say, Lord, give me more than a crumb. Give me more than a crumb.